I said, this is one of the biggest gaps between the best and second best player we've ever seen, talking about A'ja Wilson in the WNBA. And I'm confused because I'm seeing fans bring up Caitlin Clark. Like, don't get me wrong, she's really good, but she's barely the best guard in the league, let alone the best player in the league.
MVP candidates on points generated per game, points scored, points generated, and by assists. Now, as you guys can see here, Caitlin Clark got hurt at the beginning of this season, but she's doing this with only 31 games. So when we sit up here and say Caitlin Clark is not the greatest, at least right now, you're lying to yourself because she clearly is. The numbers don't lie.
Clark is also first in the WNBA in total points created. She is first in the WNBA in points per game created. She is first in points per minute when she is on the court. Leads the league in assists per game, and she is also third overall in scoring.
A'ja Wilson might not like where this conversation is heading. For most of the season, she has been firmly at the center of the MVP discussion with her 4 previous MVP awards, making her the obvious benchmark for the award. But now, something has changed, and it hasn't happened quietly.
And Olivia Miles.
Kelsey Mitchell.
Can I get there?
Oh, my bad.
Kelsey Mitchell, Paige Beckers.
You hear in that clip, Aaliyah Boston jumps in as Candace is speaking and says, make sure that you say Kelsey Mitchell. Now, who Aaliyah Boston didn't mention, who Candace didn't mention, was Caitlin Clark. And this has obviously...
Caitlin Clark went from barely being mentioned in the top 5 conversation to suddenly becoming a serious #1 contender. And she did it without asking for attention, going on a media tour, or demanding recognition. She simply played basketball, stayed focused, and let her performance and the numbers speak for themselves.
Just made WNBA history. 45 points, 10 assists, and the Indiana Fever beat the Seattle Storm. And this wasn't just a career night, it was record-breaking night. First player in WNBA history to record 40-plus points and 10-plus assists in the same game. Set a new Indiana Fever franchise record with 45 points. Added another historic milestone to a career that's already rewriting the record books. And she did it all while still on a minute restriction. When Caitlin Clark is healthy, she changes everything. The pace, the spacing, the energy, and nights like this remind everyone why she is one of the biggest stars the game has.
Back in July, WNBA players voted on who they believed were the league's best guards, and Caitlin Clark came in at number 11. That's right, 11th, despite ranking near the top of the league in major offensive categories. She was 4th in scoring and 2nd in assists, yet her peers still placed her outside the top 10 among guards. The ranking immediately raised eyebrows and sparked debate about whether Clark was being overlooked despite what she was producing on the court.
Clark, on a vote by WNBA players, was voted the 11th best guard in the sport. At this point, I think it's funny. Fans ranked her 2nd, media ranked her 3rd, WNBA players voted her as the 11th best guard. Indiana's scoring 94 a game. It's the highest in 16 years. She's the #1 shooter, distributor, play initiator, playmaker. She's 11th. She's 4th in the league in scoring, 2nd in assists, and she's the 11th best guard. I mean, the animosity toward Caitlin Clark.
That wasn't a statistic, it was an opinion, and one that immediately sparked debate. Players like Kelsey Plum and Jackie Young were ranked right behind Clark in the same voting. Yet the gap between where Clark was placed and where many fans believed she actually belonged seemed difficult to justify based on her production. Whatever the reason for the ranking, Clark's numbers on the court told a very different story.
Caitlin Clark voted 11th best guard by WNBA players. That's crazy. I think people need to look at themselves in the mirror and realize, like, man, you got some insecurities if you sitting down and putting Caitlin Clark as the 11th best guard. Y'all need to go to a therapist and figure out what childhood issues you have. Because if you're sitting there and looking at yourself in the mirror and putting her as 11th best guard, and you're putting you as 8th best, like, come on.
Here's the thing about being overlooked. It doesn't stay buried forever. Just 2 weeks after that player vote became public, Caitlin Clark delivered a performance that demanded attention, scoring 45 points and dishing out 10 assists against Seattle. The performance became historic, making her the first player in WNBA history to record a 40-point, 10-assist game. This wasn't simply a great stat. It was a record-setting performance that instantly changed the conversation. While 11 guards had been ranked ahead of her by her peers, Clark responded the way she always does, by letting her game speak for itself. The timing made the moment even more striking. The votes had been cast, the rankings had been published, and Clark answered with a performance that was impossible to ignore.
35 and 10. Can I interest you in that? From now on, Caitlin Clark, that's how you shoot. That's how you motherfucking shoot. 11 for 18, 6 of 10 for 3, clutch 3 after clutch 3. After everybody been on her fucking back, she came back and showed y'all she's the motherfucking one. Excuse my language, but I gotta say it because she ain't gonna say it, so I'll say it for her. Balled out tonight. Even when people are out there shooting shots when they should have been shooting the ball in the fourth quarter, she had 16 points and she was hot. Led the combat, down 6 in the fourth. Play after play, 16 points, 3 assists. She made every big play. This is what I'm talking about. When all the haters and doubters are talking about you and they coming at you game after game and you on a minute restriction and you score all the points in 20.
And that's exactly the pattern that has followed Caitlin Clark throughout the season. She gets overlooked, the expectations around her drop, and then she responds on the court with performances that force everyone to reconsider. We saw it with the preseason rankings, we saw it with the guard vote, and now we're seeing it again in the MVP conversation. A few months ago, Clark was barely part of the discussion, but now her name is right at the top of the debate.
Says Kelsey Mitchell is the MVP. A lot of people say it's A'ja Wilson, but Caitlin Clark is making this conversation very interesting. Why? Look at the numbers. Over her last 10 games, 24.7 points a game, 9 assists, and she's shooting 47% from the field and 41% from 3. That is an MVP level stretch. A'ja Wilson still has an incredible case. I mean, she's A'ja. And Kelsey Mitchell absolutely belongs in the conversation, but Caitlin Clark is making a late push that is getting pretty hard.
Now here's where things get uncomfortable for A'ja Wilson. Caitlin Clark isn't just part of the MVP conversation anymore, she's right at the center of it. She's currently leading the other major candidates in points generated per game, total points, and assists, ahead of teammate Olivia Miles, Kelsey Mitchell, and Wilson. What makes it even more notable is that Clark has played roughly a game and a half fewer than some of the players she's ahead of. She's producing at an elite level while doing it in less time, and that's a detail that makes this MVP debate even harder to ignore.
The talent is just undeniable. Y'all, some of y'all that are not giving it up for Caitlin Clark, I just simply don't understand I don't know what you're watching. I heard Candace Parker and Aaliyah Boston giving their list for MVP candidates, and I did not hear Caitlin Clark's name. I did not hear Caitlin Clark's name. What is that about? WNBA Elite Offensive Impact, league rankings across key offensive metrics. Look at this, look at that first column. And you're telling me this is not an MVP candidate? Huh? Points per game, Caitlin Clark, third. Look at the rest of the column. Oh my goodness. Assists per game, first. Points created, first. Points per game created. How? If you want to say A'ja Wilson is the MVP, I know A'ja Wilson's very dominant. Olivia Miles having an outstanding, wow. I mean, Kelsey Mitchell is a hooper. But for you not to even put Caitlin Clark on the list of MVP candidates, come on now, let's not.
Think about what that actually means. Leading a stat category is one thing when you've played every game and logged every available minute. Doing it after missing time while other players have had extra opportunities to build their totals is something completely different, and Clark is still ahead. That isn't simply a hot stretch. It shows how much impact she's having in fewer minutes than some of her closest competitors. And it goes beyond the box score. Clark now ranks 4th all-time among more than 850 guards in career points, with 690 total, while also leading the league in three-point makes. She's also expanded her game from mid-range, hitting a career-high 32 shots this season, more than she made across her first 2 seasons combined. That's a significant development for a player whose offensive game was already built around perimeter shooting and playmaking. Adding another scoring option means defenses can no longer simply give her space and expect her to settle for outside shots. ESPN has also highlighted another remarkable performance from Clark when she generated more than 40 points in a single game through her own scoring and the points she directly created for teammates. That kind of production measures more than scoring it, shows how much an entire offense can change when the ball is in her hands.
her own records now. Caitlin Clark is without a doubt having her best season as a pro, and she's on pace to make even more history. But you just gotta hear some of these crazy numbers. Let's start with the one that just makes no sense. There have been 120 20-point 10-assist games in WNBA history, right? CC has 19 of them in less than 3 seasons. She even has more than every other franchise except her own, of course. She has 9 20-point 10-assist games this season alone, the most by any player. Whose record did she beat? Her own from 2024. She became the fastest player in history to reach a combined 1,500 total career points and 500 assists. Caitlin's the only player in history to average at least 20 and 8 in a single month, and she's done it 5 times already. And she's on track to be the first to average 20 and 8 in a single season. Oh, and the Fever have been winning. They're now first in the East and 4th overall. They've won 7 of their last 9 games, winning by an average of 14 points per game. In the first game of that streak, CC had the game of her life. 45 points, 10 dimes, 4 steals, and 2 blocks. First in W history with 40 and 10 in a game. Put it this way, only 4 NBA players have notched a stat line like that in a single game. She's 3rd in scoring, she's tied for 1st in assists. So will CC catch A'ja Wilson for MVP frontrunner and help?
That kind of number doesn't happen by accident. It comes from a point guard who sees the floor a step ahead of everyone else, already anticipating the next pass before the ball even reaches her hands. Watch the tape closely, and you'll see defenders reacting to her fakes and changes of direction because Clark is reading their positioning and making decisions before they can adjust. On top of all that, Clark was named Conference Player of the Week for the 4th time this season. 4th. That's more than a short hot streak or a few standout performances. It's a consistent pattern of production that has earned recognition repeatedly throughout the year. When a player receives that honor 4 separate times, it's hard to dismiss it as coincidence.
P is on the way, and y'all stay hating on the biggest. Matter of fact, we don't even say the biggest no more. We just say don't nothing get no bigger. Man, look, Caitlin Clark ranks top 3 in points per game and assists per game. Hear me out. This season, and is on pace to be the first player in WNBA history. In WNBA history, the first person, that means she's the first to do it, to average 20 points per game and 8 assists per game in a season. Mind y'all, she's top 3 in 2 of the top 3 categories, points, rebounds, assists. She's top 3 in 2 of them. I don't think nobody else is outside of one person who is probably the front runner for MVP.
So now flip back to A'ja Wilson, because this is where the MVP debate gets interesting. Wilson has spent much of the year reinforcing the idea that she has been the league's standard since 1996, the year she was born, and that nobody is taking her spot. She has earned the confidence 4 MVPs, 3 championships, and a resume most players will never match. But resumes are built on the past. MVP races are decided by what happens in the present. And right now, Caitlin Clark is putting together numbers that are forcing people to reconsider the conversation.
For a second, A'ja Wilson is definitively the best player in the WNBA. She's just absolutely deadly as a mid-range jump shooter. She's like clockwork, like 45, 46%. And then she can drive closeouts from that position about as well as anybody in the league. As you saw the play that iced the game, just a simple rip through to the left, extend out, draw the contact, and finish off the glass. She's one of the best athletes in the league, one of the best mid-range shooters in the league. This Caitlin Clark story is really...
How is that supposed to sit with someone who's been the standard for years? Wilson remains at the top of many preseason lists and is still viewed by plenty of voters as the automatic frontrunner, while her own production remains elite. She leads in scoring average and blocks, and nobody is taking that away from her. But Clark is making the comparison harder to ignore. She's doing more with fewer games, producing more points, creating more assists, putting together record-setting performances, and helping lead a Fever offense that ranks among the league's best in scoring. That's why the MVP conversation has shifted so dramatically. It's not that Wilson suddenly became a worse player. It's that Clark has been so productive that voters are being forced to reconsider the assumptions they made earlier in the season. And as long as Clark keeps adding records and big performances to the resume, that conversation isn't going away.
When it comes to the MVP race, it's really only out of 2 candidates, and that's the Caitlin Clark and A'ja Wilson. And when you really sit back and look, the reason I say this is because A'ja Wilson is doing what she's doing, but Caitlin Clark is doing something we've never seen before, which she always does. But we've never seen a guard average over 20 while averaging over 8 assists. Over 20 points and over 8 assists. We've never seen it. And we also are a top 5 team, so you can't say anything about the record. And the players that y'all have above her, not on her level. So we could say Caitlin averages more points than Paige, averages like way more assists than Paige, and has the same or better record. So that automatically counts.
And this may be the part that stings most for the players who ranked Clark 11th at her own position earlier this season. Those same voters are now watching the player they placed behind 10 other guards become a major name at the top of the MVP conversation. Media outlets that once questioned whether Clark deserved a top 5 mention are now explaining how she made her way into the debate. That's a major shift in the narrative. Clark faced questions about her shooting, whether the hype had faded, and whether defenses had figured her out. Instead of backing down, she responded by expanding her mid-range game, improving her playmaking, and producing one of the most historic scoring performances of the season. And she's done it while playing fewer games than many of the players she's competing against.
If it's because Asia just been great for so long that, you know, what she doing has just been casually overlooked, but Asia Wilson is literally in her LeBron era. And what do I mean by she in her LeBron era? Like, Asia Wilson is at the point to where she damn near could win MVP every single year for the next 4 to 5 years if she wanted to, or if they gonna give it to her at this point. Now, the only difference between her and LeBron is not only is she winning MVP, but she also good enough to actually win the defensive MVP. Like, think about how dominant she actually is on both sides of the court. Like, the fact that they rely on her to be the number one option on offense, and then at the same time, she's the main force and the anchor of the defense as well, too. She damn near the GOAT, because not only did she just pass 600 blocks in her career, and she's the 6th player in WNBA history to reach that milestone. At the same
Compare that journey to Wilson's path this year. Nobody seriously questioned Wilson's position near the top of the MVP conversation in June. She entered the season with 4 MVP awards already behind her, giving her the benefit of the doubt from the start. Clark had a very different path. She had to climb from being ranked behind 10 other guards at her own position just to enter the same MVP conversation. That's the difference between starting with established recognition and having to earn your way into the spotlight. And that's why Clark's rise this season feels different from any previous hype cycle surrounding her.
She was the fastest player to reach 700 assists in WNBA history. Not just in WNBA history, but also NBA history as well. It took LaMelo Ball 104 games to reach 700 assists, and it took LeBron James 159 games to reach 700 assists. Caitlin Clark did it faster than the both of them. Caitlin Clark is also first in the WNBA in total points created. She is first in the WNBA in points per game created. She is first in points per minute when she is on the court, leads the league in assists per game, and she is also 3rd overall in scoring this season. The stat that really stands out to me is the points generated per game. It's the amount of points that she is either scoring or assisting on, and that's really where Caitlin Clark is at her best. We've also seen that with the Indiana Fever. They've definitely turned a corner around midway through this season. They're finding their groove, and Caitlin Clark is a big...
That is the difference between a player who entered the spotlight with established recognition and a player who had to force her way into it. Wilson has been the standard for years, and nothing can take away from her resume. But this season isn't about what happened in the past. It's about who is producing the most right now, under real pressure and with real doubt surrounding them. And by the categories highlighted this season: points generated, total scoring, assists, improvement, and record-setting performances. That player is Caitlin Clark. There's also a simpler way to look at it. Just 2 months ago, Clark was ranked 11th among guards by her peers. Now she's being discussed among the MVP leaders, coming off historic offensive performances and multiple Player of the Week honors. Either those earlier rankings underestimated her, or Clark simply refused to let someone else's opinion define the rest of her season.
Has to finish top 3 in scoring and number 1 in assists per game. She has to finish with those 2 things, because no player in WNBA history has ever finished top 3 in scoring and led the league in assists per game. She would be the first to do so, and I honestly think she has a good chance of doing this with 9 games left. She's going to have to keep that up. So she's going to be looking for somewhere in that vicinity of 25 to 30 points per game is what I think she needs to maintain. And look, I think she's going to get there. I think she's easily 20 to 25 points per.
Based on everything in the stat sheet right now, it looks like the second one. So where does that leave Asia Wilson? She's still at the top of the MVP conversation, but her position is becoming less secure with each passing week as Caitlin Clark continues to close the gap. Wilson can still say she's been the greatest since 1996, and nobody can take that confidence away from her. But confidence and production are 2 different things. Right now, Clark's numbers are making the strongest argument. If this pace continues, Clark won't simply be part of the MVP conversation by the end of the season. She could become the name at the center of it, regardless of where she was ranked earlier or whether the rest of the league is ready for that shift.